you do 7-limb prayer and mandala offering. But again, mandala offering is a very tantric sort of thing. And so, you know, I think at our level, if we do too many practices that we're not really familiar with, we don't understand, and then even we might have some aversion going, ooh, what's that, you know? So yes, I mean, often in this place, we have the 7-limb prayer followed by the mandala offering, because that is the tantric preliminary for accumulating the accumulations, the merit. But again, if we're not really understanding what this is, and we're just reading out, we're just reciting 4 lines, we have no idea what it means, then probably better to leave it out, because it's no use. And in fact, we may just get annoyed we have to read this and it doesn't make any sense to us. So, of course, ideally, if you understand what it is and its function, then we can start to incorporate this. But I think just to add it and just sort of recite some words without understanding what it is, I think that's not so helpful. Because then what happens is this preparation becomes very big, and we'll sit down and meditate and we go, oh, I have to do all this stuff before I meditate. And then we just have aversion, and that's the last thing we want. So we want to, you know, make it such that we understand what we're doing and it's going to be inspiring and helpful for us, not just a mass of things that we have to verbally recite before we can actually meditate. Then we've sort of missed the point. So then rather make it simple and know what we're doing so that it has the proper function, rather than just, as the Panchen Lama, not merely words from the mouth, because that's not preparation at all. Okay, so let's move on now in the text to page 4, the actual practice. So here, of course, we're talking about the actual practice within the shamatha, the first of the 2 main practices in Sutra Mahamudra. So remember, the 2 main practices are shamatha vipassana, and we saw earlier in the text yesterday that these 2 practices, we can actually do them in either order. But here, he's following the tradition of first doing shamatha, then vipassana. So now we're looking at the shamatha practice. And on page 4 it says, the concentration to be accomplished here is a concentration possessing 2 aspects: vivid clarity and a non-discursive single-pointedness.
This is related to shamatha?
Shamatha, yes. This actual practice is the actual shamatha practice. Because if we go back to the previous page, the outline was shamatha. There are 2 outlines, preparation and actual practice. So we're talking about the actual shamatha practice here. So here it's saying there are 2 qualities we are cultivating in the shamatha. And it says they are a vivid clarity and a non-discursive single-pointedness. So non-discursive single-pointedness is the stability. Meaning a mind that is being able to single-pointedly focus on an object. So of course the fault that we're trying to overcome here to develop this single-pointedness is distraction. And often in the texts, this fault is not listed as distraction, but it's listed as excitement or excitation. Because the most common form of distraction in our meditation is that we get pulled away by something pleasurable, something attractive, the so-called sense pleasures. And we see this actually, if we want to just briefly go to this shamatha chart, we see this here. Down the bottom, or towards the bottom on the left side, we see a bowl of fruit. So that's taste. Next to the bowl of fruit, we see a silk cloth. So that's tactile. Above that, we have two round objects, which are two symbols, which is sound. To the left of that, we have a shell with perfume in it, so that's smell. And then diagonally above that, we have a round object, which is a mirror, so that's visual. So these are the 5 sense objects, which are the most common form of distraction. So often, distraction in the meditation text is described as excitement or excitation. And then the other quality, of course, here we're trying to cultivate is this clarity. And so to cultivate that, we are overcoming the fault of dullness. The technical word often to describe this is called laxity. That our mind is not very clearly focused on the object. But as I mentioned yesterday, is that usually I add a third quality, which is not mentioned here, and that is relaxation. And of course, the fault we're trying to overcome is tension. And I think the reason that you don't see this, like in this text, or you hardly ever see it in any of the shamatha texts, historical texts, is because this was never really a problem. That historically people weren't uptight and tense like us. We live in the modern society, hectic, fast-paced lives, bombarded by stimulus, minds chaotic, and whenever we want to focus on something, we tense. That's our natural habit. We're very uptight and tense because our minds are so chaotic. I think historically we didn't have this problem. In fact, what you see, and you'll see this a little bit in the text, is usually the very first instruction we get in shamatha, in the meditation text, is firmly tighten your focus on the object. And you look at that and go, yeah, I can do that, and we clamp down. And then, of course, we get distracted, and we think the reason we got distracted is we need to clamp down harder so we don't get distracted. So we go, shh, and so we're sort of completely wound up to the point where we start to get a headache, sore, stiff neck from meditating. We're just way too tight, way too tense. So I think one of the main reasons as a beginner we have so much difficulty in our meditation is this. We're just way too tight, way too tense. We're simply trying too hard. We need to relax, relax, relax. Relax the body, relax the mind. And it's something in our modern society we've forgotten how to do, because we have two modes. Full speed, tension, or relax and collapse. That's our two oscillations. We're full power with tension, and when we relax, we sort of like collapse, because that tension is exhausting. So we sort of oscillate between these two extremes. So what we're trying to do here is combine relaxation with focus. So now we're either focused and tense or relaxed and dull. So what we're trying to achieve here, of course, is relaxation and clear focus together. That's something new to us. We don't know how to do that. So therefore, the very first thing we need to do in this practice is this. Because this is the basis of stability. Stability is the basis of clarity. So we need to emphasize these qualities in this order. So again, if we find ourselves tight and tense in body and mind, all we want to do in this practice as a beginner is relax, 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 relax. But of course we want to relax without becoming drowsy and falling asleep. So we want to try to maintain whatever level of clarity we have and relax more deeply. When we're more relaxed, body and mind, then we can start to improve stability of attention to help overcome distraction. And then when our mind is more stable, then we can work on improving clarity of attention, overcoming dullness. So this is the order we need to cultivate. And the analogy that's often given here is the analogy of a tree. That if we want to have a big tree, first we need to sink deep roots. If the tree doesn't have a deep root system, a bit of wind comes, it'll just fall over. Similarly, if we don't sink deep roots of relaxation, our tree of stability and clarity will just completely fall over. So therefore, first sinking deep roots of relaxation, that can support a strong trunk of stability. The stronger the trunk of stability, the higher the branches and leaves can grow of clarity. So this is the analogy that I find very helpful here. Any questions? Yeah.
Talking about relaxation, it's not mentioned in the script about the practical way to do it.
Actually, it is. We see this on the next page.
Okay. But what I want to say is, once I'm going to a meditation and I have a lot of distractions, and I'm trying to relax because I really try to relax, I'm not relaxed. So, what is the practical way to do it?
So again, what happens is we have this striving mode in our modern world, striving. And so when people say relax, people go, I have to relax, I have to relax, I'm trying to relax. I mean, we're just wounding ourselves up. So relaxing is just releasing that tension. Particularly releasing the striving, releasing wanting to get somewhere, wanting to have some sort of experience, because this is craving and attachment. Craving and attachment will definitely lead to a lot of tension. So just let that go. Let it go. Just whatever, just let it go. Let it go, let it go. Again, relaxing, if we try to relax, we're just going to wind ourselves up. So it's just a releasing of pushing. Just release that. Have no agenda. We're not trying to get somewhere. We're not trying to have some sort of experience. We're not in a hurry. Let go of all of that. And then relaxation is the natural byproduct of that. But there's some more tips in the next page we'll look at in the next session. Yeah.
Can you say something about clarity? Because I think that's the most, it's most unclear to me.
Okay, and then we'll take a morning tea break. Clarity, sometimes these two qualities is, they use the analogy, sometimes I've seen of like a torch or a flashlight. So a lack of stability is, if we have a dark room or something, a lack of stability is the torch light is going like this. So we're trying to sort of, and we're going like this with the light. Then of course we're not going to see anything. A lack of clarity is the batteries are almost drained, and so the amount of light coming out is very dull. It's not much. So we may be shining the torch on the object, but we're not seeing much because the batteries are getting, and there's hardly any light coming out. So that's dullness. So similarly, maybe we're focusing on the sensations of the breath here or here, and maybe we're there, we're not getting distracted, but we're looking and there's not really much appearing, particularly here. We don't notice hardly anything. And that's because of this. It's because we're not very clear. Our mind is not clear. Because there's sensations here all the time. They're always there. But we don't notice them because, one, we're usually not even in the body, we're off somewhere in our obsessive compulsive thinking. But then even if we let go of that and we put our attention in the body, then often there's something there, or maybe nothing. And it's because our mind is not clear enough. And so what we need to do is sharpen our mind, pay closer and closer attention without doing this. Because that's what we do now. If we're trying to focus on something and it's not very clear, we think the solution is get more tense. And that's what we do. And that's not a good approach. So we want to stay nice and relaxed, and at the same time pay closer and closer attention to see things more and more clearly. But it takes time. It takes time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. Because we have spent 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years cultivating these actively. Actively getting more and more tense, actively allowing our mind to go all over the place, actively, when that becomes exhausted, actively just collapsing. So we've put a lot of effort into these over the years. So to develop these is not going to happen overnight, but if we slowly work at it, then of course as the great Indian master Shanti Davis says, no matter how difficult something seems, everything with practice becomes easy. All we need to do is practice patiently, and it will. This will become easy. But it takes practice. But again, in our modern society, we want it, and we want it now. So we want this now. So of course, what we do when we want something now, we push harder, we put more effort, we get wound up more and more and more, and of course then nothing's going to work. So we need to, this is the relaxing, we need to let go of this striving mind. I need it and I need it now, I have to get it now. Quick, fast. That's going to just create a tension. So we just let go of all of that. We just follow the instructions, which we'll look at in the next session. We follow the instructions as best we can with a relaxed body and mind, and then whatever happens in the meditation is okay. Everything is okay. Because often people say, a good meditation, I hear people talking, they say to one other person, they say, oh, my meditation was really good this morning. My mind was completely still. Another person say, oh, my meditation was awful today. My mind was all over the place. If this is our idea of good and bad meditation, we're stuck. We're stuck in this striving mind, wanting good things to happen, having some fear or worry about unpleasant things happening. And we're stuck in attachment and aversion. So we need to let go of all of that, because it's just going to block us. We're just going to end up with attachment, aversion, and a lot of tension, frustration, and disappointment. That's all that's going to happen. A good meditation is simply any meditation where we try to follow the instructions as best we can, no matter what happens. That's a good meditation. Bad meditation is when we sit down, we don't try to follow the instructions, and we just let the mind do whatever it wants. That's a bad meditation. So again, simply try to follow the instructions as best we can. Whatever happens, good meditation. Because some days our mind is naturally more quiet, other days it's naturally more active and distracted. So we're going to have a lot of variation in what happens to us. And it's not what happens to us that's important, it's how we respond to what happens to us that's important. And if we respond by craving and attachment to pleasant things and aversion to unpleasant things, then the practice is stopped. So again, just try and follow the instructions with a relaxed body and mind. Whatever happens is okay. Morning tea break time, so let's have a break, come back at 11:15. We'll go more into the practice. So remember, we're in silence mode again today. So if you really have to use your phone or talk, please go to the other side of the car park. And then we'll see you back at 11:15.